Peter recognized Vola's footsteps, the hard wooden stamp followed by the softer shoed footfall, and dropped the logs back into the wood bin. He braced himself in the cabin doorway, watching Vola pump water into the kitchen sink. You stayed on that foot? Off that foot? Pretty much. Actually, he'd gotten up at least a dozen times to do pull-ups on a beam, and he'd lifted logs for half an hour. His arms were sore, and his feet hurt a lot when it wasn't raised. But he hadn't been able to lie around doing nothing, knowing Pax was still out there. Vola began lathering up her hands without turning around. You wrote that note? Peter pulled the crutches to his sides. Already he felt more secure when they were tucked under his arms. I did, but no buts. You write once a week. The bus driver friend I told you about, Robert Johnson, I will ask him. He'll mail them from different spots along his route. First condition, remember? Peter tried a sharp turn. Wobbled, but righted himself. He swung to another turn, smoother. All right? Okay. Good. Vola hung the dish towel on its peg, crossed to the fireplace, and began shredding newspaper onto the grate. Let's move to the second condition, then. That charm bracelet you carry. I'm guessing it was your mother's. Why do you carry it with you? Was that a particular thing? Peter felt his body go instantly rigid, the way it always did whenever anyone asked about his mother, as it had to freeze to decide whether it was okay to talk about her or not. Usually with strangers it wasn't. He was surprised. Sorry, just have to exit a little thing I have there on the desktop. When his hands relaxed their grip on the crutches a little, and his throat eased open. She always wore it. She'd hold her wrist up so I could play with it when I was a baby. I don't remember that, but I've seen a picture. I do remember telling me about it. Though, about the charm, I mean, it's a phoenix. That's a special bird. It's red and gold and purple, colored like sunrise, and it rises from the ashes. I know what the phoenix is. Right, but out of its own ashes. That's the part my mom cared about. Wow, that's something. Its own ashes. When it gets worn out, it builds itself a nest high in a tree, away from everything. Peter stopped. It suddenly occurred to him that Vola's cabin felt like a nest. He circled on the crutches to look around. Yes, a secret, protected nest, surrounded by trees, away from everything. He turned back to Vola, who was cross-stacking kindly. He hoped she hadn't read his mind, so the phoenix fills the nest with its favorite stuff. Myrrh and cinnamon is what's in the story, I think. Then the nest ignites, burning the bird's old body, and the new bird rises up out of the old bird's ashes. My mother loved that. She said it meant no matter how bad things got, we could always make ourselves new again. Vola didn't respond. She touched a match to the shredded paper and watched it as it caught fire. Her face looked grim in the light of the new flames. She added 2 logs and then a third. Go try those crutches outside while there's still some light, she said without looking up. Peter opened the front door and navigated the step. Relieved to get away, he didn't have a clue what he'd said wrong. Living in the woods all alone probably made a person weird. But she was right, that he needed to practice outside. He'd lost a whole day now. A whole day. Maybe he did need some time to train and heal, but he was leaving as soon as he could. He left the cleared yard and headed to where the uneven ground was snarled with roots and brush. It took a notoriously long time to circle the cabin. His second turn around was a little faster, and by the 5th circuit, He felt almost he felt almost comfortable. But when he was bathed in sweat, when he swung back inside, but he was bathed in sweat when he swung back inside. The cabin was quiet except for the gentle crackling of the fire. Bola sat in an armchair, sewing something yellow. The quiet and the way the setting sun seemed to wash the... Let me just adjust to myself. Just a lot of reading. It's frickin' 17 pages, so... Yeah, we're on the 5th page, so chill. Cabin in peace. As if everything were right with the world. Suddenly, felt mocking to Peter. Everything was wrong with the world. Another day had passed when Pax had been out there alone. Another night was coming when he would be cold, probably hungry and scared too. And what if he hadn't found water? He took a lurking swing across the room. Halfway across, one crutch caught on a rug, and he had to stab the other into a wall to keep from crashing into a lantern. Shorter steps. You'll get the hang of them after a while. After a while? My fox will be dead in a while. He dropped the crutches and sank to the chair at the kitchen table. What's the point anyway? How is this supposed to work out? Lola dropped her sewing. What do I look like? A magic 8-ball? She went out to the porch and came back with a bag of ice. Then she lifted Peter's foot to a chair and arranged the ice over it. I don't have your answers. The sight of his useless foot reminded him of everything he couldn't do now. He looked away. Why not? Aren't you supposed to be wise and all? Living out here by yourself with all these? He threw his thumb toward the jumble of notes tacked on the board behind him. All these philosophy bingo cards. You're supposed to be wise at least, aren't you? Or witchy or something? Peter almost didn't recognize himself. Back talking the woman like this. He felt as if he were short-circuiting, as if his impulses were leaping directly out of him without passing through his brain. But once again, he wasn't where he should be. And now his foot was too wrecked to get him there. And Pax was still out there alone. Bola pulled a bucket from the cupboard and set it in the sink. Philosophy bingo card. She looked only mildly insulted. I'm trying to figure out my own life. I don't have your answers. So who does? And don't say my father, because he is a little absent these days, and because he caused all of this. Peter hardened his jaw against saying the words and forced him to breathe slowly. He wasn't angry. He was just frustrated. Anyone would be. Sudden tears threatened. What was wrong with him lately? And he knuckled his eyes. Bola started over toward him. Then seemed to change. Seemed to change what? Your appearance? Seemed to change her mind. She backed away to lean against the kitchen counter. You are angry, she said simply, as if she were noting he had dark hair, or the sun was going down. I'm not angry. But he forced his fist open and counted 10 slow breaths, fighting it the way he always did. Because what if he was like his father, with that threatening kind of anger, the kind that always simmering, the kind that could boil over at any time and hurt everyone in the way. The apologies afterward would never heal the damage. He squeezed his eyes shut against the tears, still crowning. I'm not angry. It's just that I didn't choose it. I didn't choose for there to be a war. I didn't choose for my father to join up. I didn't choose to leave my home. I didn't choose to go to my grandfather's house. And I sure didn't choose to abandon an animal I took care for 5 years. You're a kid. You don't get a lot of choices. I'd be angry too. Diable man angry. I told you, I'm not angry. Peter gulped in a sob that somehow escaped a twisted laugh. He was short-circuiting again. And you're in love with that word, you know. What are you talking about, boy? Dableman. What is that? A swear? You're in love with the word Dableman. His wiring felt totally fired. If we were in second grade, I'd tell you you're so in love with that word you should marry it. She squawked a loud crow's caw. But you're right, she said. I should get down on one Dableman, ruined knee, and ask that word to marry me. You should. Peter agreed, kind of hysterical now. You should put a Dableman ring on his Dableman finger. He wiped his face off and watched Vola as she came over and took the seat across from him. My grandfather swore in his first language. I drove my grandmother crazy because she didn't speak it, but she sang in Italian when she cooked. So Vola lifted a finger to stroke the feathers bunched at her throat. I carry many traits, she said quietly. And then she went silent for a while, holding his gaze the whole time. In their silence, Peter felt they were saying something important. Something about the long, dark tunnel he felt narrowing around him. I was counting on finding Pax in a week, maybe 10 days. He looked down at his foot. Now, Pax, that's his name? It means peace, you know. Oh, thank God we know the definition of Pax. Woo, I didn't even think of doing that. Okay, Pax means peace, love. Peace, peace, kids, peace, peace, man. Sorry. It means peace, you know. Peter knew that lots of people had told him, but what? What? That's not why I named him. First day I brought him home, I left him for a minute, just a minute, so I could get him some food. When I got back, I couldn't find him. He crawled into my backpack and fallen asleep. It had the word Paxton soon on the label. I was 7 then, and I figured Paxton. That's a good name. It had an X in it, like Fox, you know? But now what? He's all alone because of a war. I let him go because of war. War, not peace. What's that called? Irony? Whatever. Now it's a terrible name. He'll probably die because of a war. Maybe yes, maybe no. He could survive. It's spring. Plenty of food, I think. Peter shook his head. Foxes teach their kids to hunt when they're about 8 weeks old. I found him way before that. He was maybe 2 weeks old. The vet figured he could run across a dozen mice sitting up upon little plates, and he probably couldn't catch them. All he's ever had is kibble and scraps I let him swipe. What kind of scraps? Anything he'd find out there? Peter shrugged. He's crazy for peanut butter. He likes hot dogs, loves eggs. No, unless he stumbles into someone's picnic, he'll starve. He'll find water, I figure, and he can probably go a week without food. But after that, Peter dropped his head to his hands. I can't let it happen. I didn't choose any of it, but I didn't fight it either. I don't know why I didn't fight it, except, of course, he did know. When his father had first dropped the order about Pax, Peter had steeled himself and said, "No, I won't do it." But his father's eyes had flared with a flash fire anger, and his fist had jerked up, stopping only at the last split second to knuckle Peter's cheek in a gesture that carried enough threat to set Pax on a growling alert. Damn. Peter's own fist had come up, and the rage he'd felt at his father had scared him more than the threat itself. He heard his grandfather's words now. Our apples don't fall far from the tree. And he felt sick and afraid all over again. He dropped his gaze to the worn pine table to hide the shameful headline he felt burning across his face. Roller reached over and cupped the top of his head with both hands. Peter froze, except for an occasional attaboy shoulder shake from his father or a casual arm punch from one of his friends. No one had touched him since his mother. Rolla paused, as though she knew he needed time. Then she pressed down firmly. It was a strange thing to do, but Peter didn't pull away. Didn't move a muscle, didn't draw a breath, because at that moment, her strong grip was the only thing keeping him from flying apart. Well, that's over now, she said, isn't it? She rose. I may not have your answers, boy, but I do know one true thing about you. You need food. a lot of food. You're 12, and you've slept out in the cold, and you've got a bone to heal. I'm going to set that bone now. Then I'm going to start cooking, and you're going to start eating. And neither of us is going to stop until you say so. Got it?" Peter's belly was suddenly a hollow, snarling crater. "Yes, ma'am, I've got it." Vola rummaged under the sink and drew out a sack of plaster. Peter watched her sift some into the bucket and then pump in some water. Then she brought over the thing she'd been sewing. "Foot up." Vola propped a pillow under his knee and worked a quilted sleeve over his leg, like an open-toed sock. He recognized the yellow checked material. He glanced into the bedroom to be sure. "You cut up your quilt?" "I can always make another one. You need the cushioning." She took another section of quilt and stripped the batting off. Then ripped the yellow calico into strips and dunked them into the plaster. "Hold your foot at a 90-degree angle, around and around his foot and ankle, halfway up his shin." She wrapped the strips when she'd built a thick boot. She frosted it with more plaster. "Don't move, not even your toes." Vola left for the porch and came back with her arms full. She set 2 iron skillets on burners, flipped a hunk of butter into each, and turned on the flame. She cracked a couple of eggs in a yellow bowl and started whisking and milk and then cornmeal. A cool breeze, fragrant with turned earth and frying butter, lifted against Peter. He looked at the sturdy cast drying, his foot safe inside now, wrapped in what used to be Vola's quilt. "I'm sorry about how I've been." He tipped his head to her bulletin board. "My philosophy, bingo cards," she said, with a nod. "No bet, Peter? Those are just things I figure to be true about the world. The universals. The important ones are the things I figure out to be true about me. I keep them. Ooh. Somewhere else, private. How come? How come they're the important ones? Or how come they're private?" Peter shrugged. "Either. Both." He leaned back, waiting. Lola eyed him as she sawed a slice off a ham joint and forked it into one of the frying pans. She dipped out 3 lades less of batter, poured them sputtering into the other pan, then set the bowl down. "I'm going to tell you a story. When I got out of service, I didn't remember a single true thing about myself. That's what training does. No more individuals, just pieces they can mold to their machine. I was lost my first day as a civilian. Lost. I went into a grocery store. I stared at all the choices, and I kept wondering who was I supposed to be buying the groceries for? What filled this person's hungry belly? Gumbo or pie? Beans or bread? In the produce aisle, I broke down because I didn't quite remember a single thing about myself. Lola went quiet then, her eyes closed. "What happened?" Peter nudged after a moment. "What happened in the store? What happened in the store?" "Oh." She turned back to the stove and flipped the Johnny cakes. Peanut butter. What happened?" Lola tossed her hands into the air. "Peanut butter happened. And I was lucky it did. There I was, on the floor of the grocery store, dirty, red and white, checked linoleum. And I'll never forget weeping. And I knew I couldn't get up until I remembered what kind of food I liked." Lola stacked the Johnny cakes on a blue plate, then paused. Peter thought she might be drifting back to seeing something like that. A ground woman, sobbing on a dirty grocery store floor. A crazy lady, with one lost leg. He felt suddenly protective and hoped no one had laughed at her and that she had gotten herself out okay. And finally I did. I remembered my grandmother telling me that when I first discovered peanut butter sandwiches, I wanted one every day. So I got up from the floor and I bought myself some peanut butter and bread. I filled my cart with peanut butter and bread because I decided I wasn't coming back until I knew for sure something else I liked to eat. and I was afraid that it might be a long time. She added the ham to the plate, slapped on a scoop of applesauce, and brought it over to him along with a white pitcher of maple syrup. Eat. Peter flooded the plate with syrup and loaded a fork. The cornmeal had a gritty crunch. The ham was smooth and salty against the sweet syrup. It was the best food he could remember eating. And was it? He asked when he cleaned half the plate. A long time before you remembered something else. Willa pressed a finger to the drying cast. Almost set. Keep still a while longer. She went back to the stove and carved more ham and ladled more batter into the skillet. It was people around me. They called it PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, from being in the war. And they were right that I was sick. But I knew it wasn't being in the war. Exactly. It was that in the war, I had forgotten everything that was true about myself. Post-traumatic forgetting who you are disorder. That's what I had. My grandfather was in a nursing home by then, and he was dying. I went out to his place. It had been my old home, too. My grandparents raised me for a couple of years to clean out. The book is not damaging. To clean it out. It was the end of summer. The orchard was an untended mess, but there were still some peaches hanging on. And that was the second lucky thing that happened to me after the peanut butter, because I suddenly remembered, Lord, I had loved those peaches. I used to sneak out in the middle of the night to pick them. I'd sprawl on the grass underneath those trees with fireflies flashing all around and katydids singing a heap of peaches on my belly, and I'd eat them till the juice ran into my ears. I remember that so clearly. I could smell that memory. I could hear it, and I could taste it. But I couldn't figure out how that girl could be the same person who had put on a uniform, picked up a gun, and done the things I did in the war. So I reached up and picked one of those peaches, and I laid myself down on the grass and bit into it. And there I was. I found another little true piece of me, of my old self. She brought the skillet over and snapped more Johnny cakes and ham onto his empty plate. Then went back to the stove. Stop, Peter said. Stop? Well, that's the end of the story anyways. No, I mean, this food. That'll be enough. Thank you. Peter wished again that his fox were under the table. Wondered again if Pax was hungry. And then had the curious sense. See how... Oh my god, we still have like a ton of pages left. Oh no, we only have one more page. That he wasn't, that tonight at least, Pax had food in his belly. So then what? He asked after loading his fork. You were okay? Bola set the skillet in the sink and came back to sit across from at the table. What a person likes to eat, that's a detail. I was so lost. I needed to find out all the true things about myself. The little things to the biggest of all. What did I believe at my core? Peter figured he knew it was coming. Like war. Now you're anti-war, right? Vola steepled her fingers under her chin. That's a complicated thing. What I am is for telling the truth about it. About what it costs. People should tell the truth about what war costs. That it's taken me a long time to figure out. She leaned back, and that was just one thing. I had to relearn everything that was right and wrong for me. But I couldn't. The world was too loud for me to hear myself think. So I moved into my grandfather's place. I decided to stay there until I knew who I was again. Peter looked up at the jarred peaches on the shelf above him, then recalled the blooming trees in the orchard. And you're still here, he said. Is this that place, isn't it? This is that place, isn't it? Wow. Woo! That was a good chapter. Man, I like that chapter. Dang. You see, Vola is, You see, like, it all started with, like, Peter, his dad, then Pax, and then Peter, and well, then his dad left, and then it was just Peter and Pax. And then Pax found Bristle and the old, and, like, Run and the other guys, and Peter found Vola, and, like, the kids at the school, and it's very interesting. The more I read this book, the more I feel like I need to finish it, because we are going to finish it. Like, if you don't love this book already, come on. This episode was quite long. It was 17 minutes. Well, not 17 minutes, but it was 17 frickin' pages. I hate you, love you, whatever. Now that we know that Pax and Cease, peace out, kids! Because I will see you guys in the next episode of Pax, which will be on Friday. So, yeah, tomorrow will be the longest night, and, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you on